FR 1025, FR 1026, FR 1042, and FR 1079, and I'll leave the meeting at that point.
Okay. Lisa Marie.
Thanks, John. I am on the board of PACE, who have an application in, and I am going to declare an interest, and I'll leave for that item.
Okay. Blair.
Yeah, just a declaration for Renfrew Sea Scouts and Trinity Scouts.
Trinity Scouts as well.
Better to be safe than sorry, John.
All right. Andrew, I mean, it's not for me to tell you to declare an interest, but you do have an application in these circumstances. It would normally be the case that you would declare an interest and leave the meeting for the time that it's being discussed.
Yeah, I was just waiting for a good time to bring it up. I don't have the exact code of the application to hand.
That's okay.
When it's got up, I'll step out. But obviously, being my first one, I was just looking to see what the lay of the land was, how to.
100%, 100%. So, yeah, just to welcome Andrew, who's the new centre manager at Renfrew YMCA, taking over from Karine, who decided that the commute from Kirkcaldy to Renfrew was just a bit much, which I can probably understand. And also Susan, we have two community council representatives here. We only have one member on the local partnership though, but Susan and Michael are going to be alternating it, as I understand it. But Susan and Michael are both here tonight, but Susan is the representative tonight. So that's that. But the business.
Sure, you've still to declare. Have you got any interest to declare?
I'm telling Andrew to declare one and not declare mine. So I'll declare an interest for PACE as well. My wee one goes to PACE, so I should probably declare an interest. I'll leave the meeting. Kevin Milliken is going to chair the meeting at that point. And moving on from that smoothly, we should have appointed a vice chair, a deputy chair, a wee while ago, but we didn't do it. And it wasn't until I realised tonight that we need a vice chair that I realised we hadn't done it. So I'm going to nominate Kevin as the vice chair. Lisa Marie will second it, as I understand.
Happy to second.
Is everyone okay with that, or does anyone else fancy nominating someone else? Take that as agreed. Thank you very much. And also, we've got a record number of funding applications tonight. I think certainly in my time in the 8 years I've chaired this board, and also the local area committee prior to that, we've got a huge number of funding applications, and we're way oversubscribed in terms of the funding available. So it may be that we make awards which are more than the funds we have available. And my proposal would be that, if the funding only covers, 95% of what we've awarded, then everyone only gets 95% of their funding, rather than trying to break it down into, let's take £100 from here or £200 from there. If hopefully we're not oversubscribed, but if we are, I would suggest that we do that. Is everyone okay with that? Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to the items on the agenda now. Item 1 is the minutes of the previous meeting. Does anyone?
So can I just stop you there very, very quickly?
Yep.
Just for new members and also the rest of you, just to say that this meeting is being recorded and it will be available for the public, be placed on the agenda. So it's just to let you know that that recording is on just now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Carol. Remiss of me. Item 1 on the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting. Does anyone have any questions, comments? Are we happy to agree the minutes? Okay. Item 2 on the agenda is this year's first set of applications. Sorry?
Sorry. My apologies. Just a bit of childcare issue.
All right, okay. Item 2 on the agenda is applications for local partnership funding to Renfrew Local Partnership 25-26. So as I mentioned, a huge number of applications this year. And if you don't mind, I'll just run through the ones that I think are kind of, well, look fine to me, and I assume to everybody else as well, not controversial in any way. The ones that don't fit in with our kind of local partnership decision to only fund applications which are based in Renfrew or provide services in Renfrew, and then just the ones that are kind of left over. There's a few this year for discussion. So I'll run through the ones which most of these are outlined in the paper, is not connected to Renfrew. I think there was one which was in the paper is not connected to Renfrew, which actually I think probably is. They're looking to hold an event in Renfrew, but I can talk about that as well. So these are in the order that they're in the paper, so they're in order of application. The first one up would be Renfrew effort to empower minorities, the Ream Drop-In Centre. Next up would be the Scottish Afro-Caribbean Arts Association. Neither of these were Renfrew, and they were both for running costs as well. Rainbow Turtle is not Renfrew. The 7th Paisley and District Scout Group is not Renfrew. Loud and Proud is not Renfrew. The Paisley Sea Cadets and Bredlin Tall is not Renfrew. The Paisley and District Battalion Boys Brigade, I think part of that probably covers Renfrew, but it's a development officer they're looking for funding for, and we wouldn't cover that. Lament Farm and Food Train are all. Food Train is not confirmed as Renfrew, and again, it's running costs. So if everybody's okay with, well, they're in is not connected to Renfrew, but I'm proposing that we don't offer any funding to any of these groups. Are we okay with that? Okay. Next ones up are the ones which should be fairly simple. There's no, nobody's declared an interest in any of these. So if anybody's got any doubts or anything about them, then please let me know. So these are the ones that I would look to award without issue. So there's New Mains Parent Council, Friends of Knockhill Park, Forever Young, Kirtland Community Centre. There's 2 applications from Renfrew Cricket Club now. This is because last year they submitted an application which they've shown us the proof that they submitted it, but we don't know where it is. So we've given them the opportunity to apply for what they'd applied for last year, which is the conversion of the container to a score hut. And they've also got this year's application in, which is the mobile cricket covers. So happy to approve both of them if you are. There's a second Renfrew Trinity Scout Group, the West of Scotland Darts Academy. It's great to see all these new applications rather than nothing wrong with the same old faces, but it's good to see some new ones in there. Renfrew High School Parent Council, Kirtland Parent Council, the Renfrewshire Toy Bank, Arkelson and New Mains Over 60s, Glasgow Clan Ice Futures Charity, Clan Academy, Custom Cruisers, and St James Primary Parent Council, which was a very late addition to the papers today. So if everybody's okay with approving them, I would suggest.
Sorry, John, can I just declare a conflict of interest there? Sorry, I wasn't aware that the Parent Council of Renfrew High had put their application in, but obviously I'm the chair of Renfrew High Parent Council, along with various other things. So I'm happy to leave the meeting and come back in if somebody can let me know.
Right, okay.
We go back.
Did you get the papers okay?
I got a whole bunch of papers, and I've been trying to look through them, and it was only when somebody had highlighted it there, because what I was looking through was a list where it had the first one was in Appendix 2 was Arkelson and New Mains Over 60s Club.
That was the additional papers that came through. Right. So there should have been okay, but if you want to leave the meeting just now before we make the decision, then that's okay.
Yep, that's fine. Thanks very much.
Okay, so unless anybody's got any objections, I would propose that we approve all these at the moment and then move on to the ones which there's maybe a wee bit more discussion needed. Is that okay? Okay. So again, these are the ones that are probably Renfrew connected, but there's maybe some questions on the amounts or you know how they're set up. So the first one is Dates and Mates, who have applied for £5,000 as they have done, I think, for several years. Dates and Mates are a great organisation, but there's not they don't really do a lot in Renfrew. They do the odd thing in Renfrew. So the £5,000 covers, I think, running costs and you know all sorts of stuff. I would suggest that we award them £500, which allows them to have their you know the odd event in Renfrew if they so wish. Is everybody okay with that? Yep. Next up is Fashlik. Again, they've taken 4,926. There's some running costs in there as well. We had some issues with the Face, not last year, but the year before, where we'd given them the full amount they'd asked for, but there was very little happened in Renfrew. And again, you know, last year we were kind of chasing up to see what was happening. You know, there appeared to be like more events in Lochwinnoch than was happening in Renfrew. So my suggestion would be £1,500 for the Face, if everybody's okay with that. Okay. Pachedu, Rediscover Africa. So we'd given this group some money before, where they'd suggested they were going to have a fairly big event in Renfrew, which didn't come off. And I think they ended up having the event in the YMCA, which is obviously a fairly small venue. So I think, you know, I'm happy to suggest we give them, you know, some grant funding, but going in the previous experience, I think probably £500 or so again is a reasonable amount of money. Is everybody okay with that? Okay. Paisley Pirates Ice Hockey Club. So this is for the provision of ice, and it's something that we've given the Paisley Pirates for the last few years. Now they've asked for £5,000 here. My concern here is that Paisley Pirates normally apply to us and the Paisley local partnerships, but for some reason they've only applied to us this year and have chosen not to apply to the Paisley partnerships. I think even with a kind of nudge from the council officers that perhaps this would be a good idea. I mean, as you know, we're always happy to fund Renfrew organisations, but I don't think where there is other funding available, we should be taking the full brunt of the funding ask. So my suggestion would be that we cut the 5,000 to 3,500, and that council officers should make clear that, you know, they should be maximising their opportunities in other local partnerships as well. Is everybody okay with that? Okay. The next up is the Broadlawn Gardens event cabin and storage cabin. Now, the only reason I wanted to talk about this one was the amount of money that's being talked about here. It's £14,000. It's our biggest application this year. And also there was some questions. I had some questions about this because Broadlawn Gardens is obviously an amazing facility. But there are kind of halls round about, you know, there's the community centre, and I think there's a drill hall up there as well. So the kind of question I'd had was about, you know, why can't they use them? Why do they need their own hall, sort of thing, which is in effect what they're doing here. But this is very much, I think there's a drill hall or a mess hall. This is actually going to be a messy hall, you know. It's just kind of just the very nature of the allotments and the growing grounds and all that, you know, this is going to be their base. So it's not really realistic or practical for them to use other facilities. hence the application. So I don't know if anybody's got any other questions or comments in this one. I'd be happy to approve it. As I say, they're a fantastic group doing some great work, and this will help them out. So does anybody else have any questions, comments? We okay to approve? Okay. The next up was Brightest Star. Obviously another group doing fantastic work. It's really sad that we have the Brightest Star, but we do, and obviously they play an important role across our community. It's the first time we've had an application from Brightest Star, and my concern about this one was that, you know, the bereaved family fund days, where were the fund days going to be? You know, because if they weren't in Renfrew, then going by everything else we do, we shouldn't be funding them. But I'm glad that we've had it confirmed that the fund days will be in Renfrew. So it was just to make that clear, and I'm happy to propose that the full award is granted. Is everybody okay with that? Okay. The School of African Cultures. So Kangama meaning connect in Lingali, a language from the Congo. So this is another application for an event, which was kind of like, I guess, the Pachedu one before. There's no real detail on what's being offered. It also talks about there's 7 local partnerships, but it only talks about 5 local partnerships. It talks about 25 hours or 25 days or something like that, 25 weeks, 5 weeks in each local partnership. But obviously that doesn't add up. But it does then go on to talk about having an event in Renfrew, which is great. But there's lots of sort of facilitation and coordination costs and all this sort of stuff. So I'm not so sure about them, but I'd be happy to propose it rather than the 3,855. I'd suggest the 1,750, which would cover the event and the hall hire, if everybody's okay with that. Okay. Renfrew Ladies and Girls FC. This is an equipment project. So there was 3 strands to this. There was the mini goals, there was some general football equipment, and there was pitch hire and subs. I'm not sure as a local partnership we want to get into paying for pitch hire for football clubs because we'd be bankrupt very quickly. So I suggest we knock off the pitch hire. And the kind of general equipment was just general equipment that you'd expect a football club to have anyway. You know, they're part of Renfrew FC. So I would suggest we knock that off as well, but happy to pay for the mini goals. I think last time round they got some training goals, which I think are just big goals that they can move. But these are the mini goals they're looking for, so it'd be £1,320. I would suggest that we give them if everybody's happy with that. Yep. Okay, and I think from here on in it's all declarations of interest. So did Susan come back? Actually, did anybody tell Susan to come back? Oops.
I did message Susan, but I don't know if she's seen it. So I've asked Kerry to get Michael to contact her.
Right. Is Michael still here? Yeah.
Yep, Michael's still here.
Yeah, so we've still got somebody from Community Council on. Okay, so Andrew, yours is up first. So do you want to drop off just now? And Carol will message you once we've done talking about this. Okay.
Which one are we going to speak to now, Councillor Shaw? Can you give me the
Renfrew YMCA, Ren Y Summer and Beyond. Okay. Yeah. So this application was for £4,940, but there were kind of trips and stuff involved, which we don't normally cover. But there were also some other stuff. There was like STEM and arts and crafts and sports stuff getting involved, I think, over the summer. I'd be happy to fund them, they come to £2,300, but the rest of it, you know, the heating costs and the trips away, I'm not sure that's something we want to get into. Does anybody have any questions or comments on that, or any other suggestions? I'd be happy to go with the £2,300. Okay. Do you want to message Andrew, Carol?
Okay.
Development Trust's up next, Kevin, so you can
I'll leave the meeting out.
disappear. Aye.
That's Andrew just coming back in.
Okay,
Right.
thanks for inviting me back.
Okay. Thanks, Andrew. So next up, we've got Renfrew Development Trust. There's 4 applications for different strands of the stuff that Development Trust is doing. First up is the craft class that they have for £5,400. This seems to work really well. I don't have any issues with it. Have anybody else got any questions or comments about it? Nope. Next up is Friends of Robertson Park, a memorial area and tennis lessons. Friends of Robertson Park have made some really good use of local partnership funding in the past to do different things, and I'd be more than happy to approve this one. I think Lisa Marie is going to come in and talk about tennis lessons, guaranteed. Lisa Marie.
You are guaranteed, John. Obviously, the partnership know that I worked long and hard with council officers and LTA to make sure that we got the tennis courts there, and this is exactly what we envisaged them being used for. I actually, when I saw it in the papers, I messaged councillors and said, "Oh, I'm really excited about this." So I'm really delighted that the Friends of Robertson, that the Development Trust have come forward with this. I think it's great, and hopefully it means we'll see lots of usage during the summer.
Good stuff. Anyone else? Any questions, comments? Are we happy to approve that?
Yep.
Okay. Next up's a new project from the Development Trust. It's mindfulness, wellbeing and educational classes for £7,158. I'm okay with it. If anybody else got any questions or comments, it's speak now or forever hold your peace. Are we okay to approve? Okay. And last one is the Longcroft Cottages CAT project, which is going to be great if it comes off. The only suggestion I would make here is that there's £5,000 in total for kind of surveyors and stuff like that, but there's £1,000 for insurance, buildings and contents insurance. I'm not sure that's required at the moment. That would be much further down the line. This is for building contents insurance for the Longcroft if and when they actually take possession of it. So I would suggest here that we drop the 6,000 down to 5,000 if everybody's okay with that. Okay. Can we let Kevin know you can come back?
Okay, give me a second.
You're out next, Blair.
No worries, John. I'll go there now. Cheers.
So you just arrived, Stuart? Are you an hour ahead or something? Oh, he's not listening.
He's been in for a wee while.
Oh, is he?
Yes, he's been in for a while.
There's a delay to Spain.
No, there's no delay.
That's Kevin back in.
All right. So next one is Renfrew Town Sea Scouts, who are looking for £10,000 to purchase a new minibus to take all their scouts and cubs and everyone down to Lochwinnoch to do all their sea stuff or loch stuff. Now, I don't have an issue with the award of £10,000 to the Sea Scouts for something like this. What I do have an issue with is whether they're going to get the funding from the other local partnerships that they're suggesting that they'll use to purchase the minibus. I'm a bit worried about that, and I'm a bit worried about what the plan B might be to if they don't get the funding from elsewhere. I don't want £10,000 of Renfrew local partnership money sitting in a bank account for the next 2 years doing nothing. So what I'd suggest here, and hopefully officers can keep me right that this is okay, I would suggest that we make the award conditional, that the purchase of the new minibus is complete by the next local partnership, which is when, Stuart?
Sorry, next local partnership is 27th of August.
So the end of August, so that's 4 months to pull this together. I understand that they do have some funding of their own, which they could use to put towards this, but they are looking at other sources as well. They've also, I think they'd raised about £5,000 as well through fundraising for it. So there are other options that they have, but I just don't want this to be sitting in a bank account somewhere for years and not being used. We're probably going to be down to our last few pennies after this tonight. So, if it comes back to us in August, then, great, we can use it for something else. But if they spend it, then great, they've got the minibus. Is everybody okay with that? Yep. Sorry, Alice.
Yeah, it was just to say, Councillor Shaw, that there is an initiative of Renfrewshire Community Transport, which is being headed up by, a collective, but Cassie Forbes at Raw, and they have an officer as well. So just if the other partnerships don't go for it, then maybe that can be shared as another opportunity for them to access that because they have purchased a minibus as well, or are well on the way to purchasing one.
Yeah. Okay, I'll certainly let Blair know that. Okay, so we're happy to agree that the 10,000 conditional on that it's spent by the time the next local partnership comes around. And last one on the list is Pace. So I'm going to drop off just now along with Lisa Marie, and we'll leave you to Kevin. Okay, don't wreck the place, Kevin. Thanks.
You can just give me a wee second till I message Blair. 2 seconds.
Apologies to everyone for not noticing that Renfrew High had a application in. That proves that my grant and fundraising officer does far too good a job, and I clearly don't as the chair.
That's Blair back in.
So the next application is from Pace Youth Theatre for a bursary fund. We haven't awarded Pace any funding in previous local partnership. They also didn't provide their feedback. My recommendation is we don't award them. Is anyone any questions on that one, or Stuart?
Oh, Stuart, I think you're on mute.
On silent, Stuart.
Sorry about that. It was just for information, just to say that I'd spoken to Grant Mason at Pace today, and he said that he would supply the feedback from this year to the local partnerships. So he will be doing that, but that's just for your information.
Councillor Gray, I think you wanted to come in. I think you're on mute.
Sorry, I was trying to tell Stuart he was on silent.
Has anyone got any questions on the page one, and does anyone want to second that recommendation?
Yeah, Kevin, I'll second that for you.
Thank you very much.
Is that, can we invite Councillor Shaw back in? You happy to?
Yeah.
Invite Councillor Shaw back in? Okay, 2 seconds.
Councillor Shaw's just on his way, Carol.
I was just phoning him there. That's fine.
I'm here. Apologies. Did you message me in Teams and I didn't get the message?
I did.
Sorry about that. Okay, so that's all.
Councillor Shaw, can I just double check one of the applications, please?
Yep.
Have we covered FR 1161 Glasgow Clan for 4K, please?
Yep, that was in the first lot that we approved.
Right, okay, thank you.
Kerry?
Hello, did we, Councillor Shaw, did we cover the Argos New Mains over 60s club?
We did.
Right.
I thought I was talking slowly as well. Okay. Thanks, Kerry. Kathy?
It's okay, John. I was going to ask the same question,
okay.
but you're absolutely right.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Shaw, can I just ask if the officers are happy with all the applications having been covered? Kerry, Emma?
My question was the one about the clan with the ice hockey equipment. So
Okay,
I think
thank
that's
you.
it. And Arcoston was the one that was at the very start, but it was the additional paper, so I had a note of that. So I think that's okay.
Okay, thank you, Emma. Sorry, Councillor Shaw, thank you.
That's okay. Next on the agenda is the budget monitoring report and feedback. Stuart?
Thanks, Councillor Shaw. Really just for noting, it's just the report from last year and the feedback that we had. So we've received feedback from a number of the projects that received funding from Renfrew Local Partnership last year. Any of the ones that are outstanding, we will continue to chase, and we'll bring that to the local partnership a future meeting if we get that. Thanks.
Yeah, I think Custom Cruisers were down as not having sent in their feedback, but they did send in their feedback really late, so hence we were able to consider their application today because we wouldn't have been considering it otherwise. So that'll be published in at the next meeting. So does anyone have any questions or comments? Lots of good feedback and some of the projects in there. Anybody want to raise anything? Nope. Papers for noting. Item 4 on the agenda is a Renfrew local partnership update paper. Just you again, Stuart?
Yeah, this was just a paper sort of detailing where we got to with the applications process, which we've come to a head tonight and made a lot of decisions on that. The second aspect of it was that to strengthen the link between the Celebrating Renfrewshire steering group, which is comprised of young people working with council officers and the local partnership. We were looking for each of the local partnerships to nominate someone that could be a liaison, if you like, or a link with the steering group that could provide some more information to the local partnership, preferably a young person. I don't think there's anybody on the call tonight within that category. So just to get your views on that.
So Stuart's just called us all old farts, I think, which is it's a bit controversial, Stuart. Kevin's quite young.
I think I could plausibly deny that, Councillor.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, we have got representatives from Renfrew High and Trinity High, so I don't know whether you could tap up one of them, or if Kevin wants to do it, then I would suggest probably speaking to the schools first. But then you've got the problem of sort of continuity, I guess, because they're generally only here for 1 year. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say the steering group is it kind of changes year on year anyway.
Well,
so
does it? Well,
that's
get somebody from one of the schools in, because they're supposed to be here. But I get it's exam season just now, so I think it's always been an issue at this particular meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, item 5 on the agenda is the Renfrew Common Good Fund. Now, there's obviously been lots of chat online about the Renfrew Common Good in recent months. There's been some fairly inaccurate information posted at times. I'd gone along and spoken to the Community Council last September about the Renfrew Common Good Fund. There was supposed, Alistair MacArthur, the Finance Director, was supposed to go along in November, but that was cancelled, and it hasn't been rearranged with the Community Council just yet. So I thought it would be a good idea to have Alistair along here. There's representatives from across the community here. So Alistair could come along and just give us a bit of a chat about what the Common Good Fund is, how it works, the kind of how it's run, how decisions are made, and how the money can be spent, what the money is being spent on. And just take any questions from any of you guys that might have any questions. It's obviously part of this meeting's recorded, so there's a kind of resource there that if anybody wants to point to it. But as I say, I just thought it'd be helpful that we got Alistair along. So Alistair, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I'm pleased that you said it was going to be a conversation there, Councillor Shaw, because it's probably not much use of me sitting spouting at you for the next 10 minutes or so. So please, if you've got questions on the way, I think that'd be much more helpful just to ask me them as we go. But happy to take them at the end as well. I don't have a presentation. I was just going to chat through some of the issues that and some of the arrangements for the management of the Common Good Funds. Renfrewshire Council administers 3 Common Good Funds, one for Renfrew, one for Paisley and one for Johnson. But I suppose in terms of the financial position of each of those, Renfrew is probably by far the best off in terms of the assets that it has under its control. So a Common Good Fund is effectively a fund that is administered by the local authority within the relevant area. So there are many councils across Scotland that manage Common Good Funds on behalf of particular areas. The Common Good Funds within the Renfrewshire boundary are effectively aligned with the historic borough areas of the county. The Common Good Fund, it's not a trust. it's not separable, if you like, from the council. I think the legal definition would be it's not alienable from the council. It can't exist separately from the council. But in terms of how it's administered very clearly separately from the rest of the council's general fund financials. The Common Good Fund has a range of assets at its disposal, and I'll come back to talk about those. But broadly, it has some property assets, it has some investments that are administered by an investment manager that's appointed by the council, and it also holds some cash balances. It has each year I suppose the administration of the Renfrew Common Good Fund, of all three Common Good Funds. The council has taken the decision that the day-to-day administration of the fund is managed by council officers, but in terms of oversight, in terms of elected member oversight, that sits with one of the committees within the council, the Finance, Resource and Customer Services Policy Board. So that's where all decisions are taken at those policy boards. So any decisions around about how common good funds are to be used are clearly taken by elected members. Usually at the beginning of each calendar year, so usually the first meeting within the cycle within each calendar year of the Finance, Resource and Customer Services Board, that is where the decision is taken on how the budget will be set for the following financial year. The Finance, Resource and Customer Services Board agrees that for both Paisley and for Renfrew Common Good Funds. The papers are for the board, including all the officer recommendations, are managed in the same way as any other council board. All the meetings are held in public and all the papers are available publicly. They're recorded in the same way as the Slope Partnership meeting is today, and they're available for viewing by interested parties. So within that decision, the budget decision that's taken at the beginning of each year, the board will take a view on what potential income might come into the fund, and that income will come from kind of three main sources. One from a rental income. So as I mentioned, the fund has a range of properties within the Renfrew town area that generate income from it. I'll come back and speak about that in a little bit more detail later. We generate income on the investments that are, as I said, managed by an externally appointed investment manager. And the council also holds a cash balance, and the interest on that cash balance is also an income generator for the fund. So that decisions, as I said, are clearly taken by the Finance, Resources and Customer Services Board, and as I said, budget information is available there if you wish to look that up. I'm happy, I was going to mention, Councillor Shaw, it would be helpful, I'm happy to liaise with Carol and I can pull together a note of the relevant documentation that I'll talk about today and include links for those, and we can get that circulated to partnership.
I think that would be helpful, Alistair. Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah. Okay. So that's in terms of the kind of budget setting during the year. I've covered that. In terms of financial performance at the end of the financial year, the annual accounts of the funds are included as a note within the overall council accounts. So effectively the cash movements and the financial and accounting arrangements for the common good funds go through exactly the same level of audit scrutiny from an external auditor as the rest of the council finances. And again, I'll send a note out with the relevant note within the accounts, but there is a separate section within the council's own accounts that details the income and expenditure of the funds for the year and what assets they have at their disposal. So as I said, that's goes through the same level of scrutiny as the rest of the council finances by an auditor that's appointed by Audit Scotland through the Accounts Commission process. I've mentioned a couple of times that there are investments. So this is investments in the stock market in effect. So the Common Good Fund has an appointed investment manager that takes decisions on behalf of the council in terms of investments that we can place in either stocks, shares, bonds, and there is a guidance there within the parameters. So we will give parameters to the investment manager to say, right, here is a level of resource, we want you to go away and invest that money for us and generate, and we give them a target level of income to that they have to try and achieve each year. There is another board, a separate board within the council, the Investment Review Board, that meets twice a year, and that monitors the performance of the investments. And if there are any queries or concerns with the investment manager, then they are brought up there. The investment manager again has to attend and present and explain their performance and the decisions that they've taken over the previous period. And again, all the papers for the Investment Review Board are publicly available on the council's website. As well as having an investment manager appointed, we also have an investment advisor, because as a matter of course, the council officers are, generally speaking, investment management experts. So we have an investment advisor that will give us independent advice on how the investment manager is performing. And again, they will input to that discussion at the Investment Review Board. As I said, the funds available within the Renfrew Fund are quite substantial. The fund holds properties across the Renfrew town area. Some of these will be familiar to you, I'm sure. The previous Renfrew police station, the Victory Baths, the KGV playing fields, and the Renfrew Leisure Centre that's nearby, Renfrew Town Hall. So all these assets are in effect owned by the Common Good Fund, and they are separately accounted within the Common Good Fund arrangements. They don't sit, in effect, they don't sit on the council's balance sheet, they sit on the Common Good Fund's balance sheet. Again, there's a list of assets that are owned, property assets that are owned by the Common Good Fund. Again, that's available on the council website, so you can clearly see what assets are under the control of the Common Good Fund there. Some of those assets are rented out or leased out to various organisations, can be private companies, for example, but some are also utilised by the council. So if I take the example of Renfrew Leisure Centre, which is a common good asset, but is obviously utilised by the council and effectively operated by the council's arm's length body, Warren Wren, in terms of delivering leisure services. The council pays a lease, in effect, to the Common Good Fund on an annual basis for all the properties that it utilises. So Renfrew Town Hall is another example there, where the council makes a payment to the Common Good Fund for use of that facility each year. So it's around about £250,000 that goes into the Common Good Fund each year from council finances for use of those facilities. As I said, I've mentioned the investments that are managed by an appointed investment manager. The investment valuation it obviously fluctuates depending on what is happening in the stock markets. I did have a quick check just before I came in the call. So the value just at the end of last calendar year, so 31st December 24, was just shy of about £20 million. You'll no doubt be aware that there's been a fair amount of volatility in stock markets over the past number of months, linked predominantly to our friends in the US. So that has had some impact on the total valuation, which has reduced slightly to about £19.2 million as at the end of March. But these investments we hold, for a very long term. We don't tend to make substantial changes in how they are managed. We do hold assets to deliver a long-term source of income, and that is the guidance that we have given the investment manager on how they manage that particular fund. I suppose the only other couple of things I was just going to say, I have mentioned the properties that the Common Good Fund controls, and so the Common Good Fund owns these buildings, it generates an income from these buildings, but it is also responsible for the costs associated with the maintenance and upkeep predominantly of these buildings, unless it has a lease in place with an external body that those lease obligations contain some kind of maintenance obligation within them, and there are one or two that do that. But predominantly for either assets that are vacant or that are managed by through the council, then the Common Good Fund effectively retains responsibility for the upkeep of those assets. I've mentioned the accounts, I've mentioned the investment management. I think that is all I wanted to cover. I appreciate that was quite a whistle-stop tour through the world of the common good. It is a very interesting area of council finances, but I appreciate it's also of interest to the public within the borough areas that it's relevant to, and there is a healthy degree of public interest in how the common good funds are used, and I think it's helpful to have sessions like this where the operational arrangements and the governance arrangements of the fund can be clearly explained, and we can provide assurance that in terms of how they're managed and operated, that they are clearly managed and operated in a transparent way and under the control of the elected members who've been appointed. But happy to take any questions at that point.
Okay, thanks, Alistair. just when Alistair was talking about the budget that's set each year, at the Finance Board, that covers things like Christmas lights maintenance and benches that the Common Good has in the park, and it covers the funding that we just distributed there. So the extra £90,000 or £100,000 that we have as a local partnership that no other local partnership has, that's come from the investment income, and that figure is set at that budget each year. So it is a topic which is rightly so. People at Renfrew are interested in, but it's kind of always it's a topic that certainly over the years I've always found that people, there could be a lot more information out there about that, and hopefully something like this helps with that. I remember back in the day when they built Renfrew Leisure Centre, being absolutely outraged that the Common Good was building this leisure centre, whereas Linwood and other places had their leisure centres built by the council. But then when you come in and you find out there's actually a fairly substantial lease fee going back into the Common Good Fund for the leisure centre, it kind of makes a wee bit more sense. So hopefully that could cast some light in the Common Good Fund. But if anybody's got any questions, then please fire away. Lisa Marie.
Just a comment, John, that members won't know that for my sins I sit on the Audit Risk and Scrutiny Board in the council, which is the board which all of the accounts for everything that the council oversees comes to before it goes to full council. So I suppose just to make clear to people that as well as Alistair says, it coming to full council and many people's coming to John's Finance Board and to the Investment Board, it also goes effectively through 2 audit processes just to make sure that we are very carefully spending our money and that everyone is doing everything they need to. And I guess I think that there's a real level of robustness that unless you're a geek who watches all of the council meetings and reads all the minutes, you probably don't see, but the process really is quite robust.
Indeed it is. And as Lisa Marie pointed out, I do chair the Finance Board that this comes to, and also chair the Investment Review Board that kind of studies the investments. Always an interesting board. So there's a keen Renfrew eye involved in both boards. Kevin.
Thanks for your report, Alistair. I just think it is such successful that a town of Renfrew in its size has such a successful common good fund, and just the amount of like the buildings and the heritage and all that that's supported just for a town of our size. It's quite impressive that it's quite a big common good fund. But thank you for the report, Alistair. It's quite an understanding on how the actual common good fund works. It's great, very interesting.
Thanks, Kevin. Johnson are forever jealous of our common good fund. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions, comments. Last chance, Stuart Wild. You must have a question in the common good.
No, not at all.
No.
I shared Gavin's thoughts. Very well managed, and when it ways go to good causes, I must say.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. Susan.
Hi, Alistair. I know John had mentioned earlier that you were supposed to be coming along to the Renfrew Community Council. I'm now the vice chair there, so I can catch up with Lindsay to reschedule having you coming along to one of our meetings if that's still something that you would be interested in doing.
Yeah, happy to do so. Just let me know when, and I'm happy to come along. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Good stuff. Thanks, Susan. So no other questions or comments. Thank you very much, Alistair. I think that's us. Date of next meeting is the 27th of August. So sorry, if somebody got their hand up. Kathy.
Yeah. Councillor McKeown.
All right, thanks, John. And if you allow me, I really want to just say thank you to the officers for the help that they've given to the over 60s clubs with the application form. And I know that they will really appreciate it being taken as a lay addition. Just to say that, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. Okay, so date of next meeting is 27th of August. We'll see you then. Thanks, folks.
Thanks, John.
Perfect, thank you.